Good evening everyone, welcome to Sociology Analytica. This is Pooja, Prasanna, your Sociology faculty. So today I'm going to discuss the last question on Weber, that is examine how Weber's characterization of capitalism is different from those of Karl Marx's idea of capitalism. See, again I'm bringing two different thinkers so that you'll understand how to compare and analyze things, okay. So this question is about, again it's a 20 marker question, so that means you have to give equal weightage to both understanding of Karl Marx as well as Weber's understanding of capitalism. See, for this question you can actually go with the multiple styles are there. So one is you can fully write Weber, okay, in one section you write Weber and other section you can write Karl Marx, and then you can conclude. That also you can do. You can also take a table format of Karl Marx, Weber in one and Karl Marx in other. So like this you can take, or you can take first you can write Karl Marx and then Weber, and then you can go with the conclusion, or you can also go with point wise. At one point you write a point and then talk, differentiate. If something similarity is there also you can write, and then go to the second point, again write both perspective. Third point you can go both perspective. Any style you can take, you can, because it is mostly like in a comparison. How they are different, okay, how they are different, what is their characterization in understanding capitalism is what the question is, okay. I have taken point format, that is one after the other point, okay. So let's start with, see, I'm pretty sure you know who Karl Marx is, what is his style, and now going to the Weber style. See, first we'll write Karl Marx perspective, and then we'll talk about how Weber has changed or Weber has done, because you must if you have studied now, you must know that Karl Marx actually studied first, and based on Karl Marx writing, Weber has studied. In fact, there is a statement that Weber has always talked to the ghost of Karl Marx, okay. Weber has always talked to the ghost of Karl Marx. Why is that? Because he has always, whatever Karl Marx has done, Weber has tried to comment on that, Weber has tried to understand that, or he has given a different theory altogether. So what you do, write Karl Marx and then you can write the Weber, okay. So Karl Marx, how Karl Marx studies? Karl Marx actually gives a economic determination or a monocausal approach. He takes a monocausal approach, and that is for the rise of capitalism. What is the rise of capitalism? Economic determinism is the only cause. That is because of economy. As economy, whosoever is controlling economy, they will be controlling rest of the social superstructure. Okay, whosoever controls economic infrastructure will be controlling the social superstructure. So he will be studying the class structure or the class structure in capitalism solely from the economic determinism perspective. Whereas Weber doesn't study like that. Weber actually takes causal pluralistic approach. What is causal pluralistic approach? He agrees to the fact that yes, no doubt about it, economy plays a huge role in the determination of capitalism. Along with economy, there might be other factors also, and he gives political factor as well as religious factor. That is, see, we do study, that is Protestant ethics and spirit of capitalism. How does he study? He actually studies from religious factor, isn't it? He actually studies from Protestant Christians factor, okay. So he says he actually takes what approach? He actually takes causal plural approach. That is first point. Second point, see, Marx gives importance to material structure. So he says, as the material structure change, okay, when the material structure change, that is when it led to the emergence of or the rise of capitalism. So let me just explain you that. So when he talks about the evolution of society, when he talks about the evolution of mode of production, in the feudal society, land was a central, and this land material structure changed to capitalism. As the material structure changed to capitalism, what also changed? The mode of society, that itself changed, that gave rise to what? Capitalistic society. Understand? So what Karl Marx says, material structure led to the rise of capitalism. But then Weber says it's not just the material structure, it is actually the idea which led to the emergence of capitalism. What he says, it is the idea. What idea? Idea of Protestant ethics gave rise to the other idea of what? Capitalistic lifestyle or the spirit of capitalism. One more idea, spirit of capitalism is an idea of life, Protestant ethics is an idea of life, which eventually gave rise to a system, that is capitalistic society or capitalistic economic system. Understand? So the spirit was already there. spirit of capitalism, that is investment, scientific invention, etc., etc., it was already there. But then the idea, that is Protestant ethics as an idea of life, that actually helped, in order for a capitalistic society to come up. Okay, so this is that. Did you understand what idea here is? Moving on to the next point, that is yes, Karl Marx, when he talks about stratification of the society, how does he talk about stratification of society? He talks only in terms of class structure. That is, the whole of society is divided, at least in the capitalistic society, the whole of capitalistic society is divided into two classes, that is the bourgeois class and the other is proletariat class. Okay, but then Weber doesn't just study from the that is stratification only from the class perspective. He says that the whole of society, along with class stratification, we can also see some other type of stratification, that is some society are based on status. Okay, some societies also divided on the basis of status, some societies divided on the basis of power. For example, status. What is the classic example of status? Caste system. Indian society is predominantly divided on the caste system, isn't it? So this is what Weber says. So it's not just class, they are also divided on the basis of class, structure as well as power. Okay, so this is a third point. Moving on to the other points, subsequent points. Next, Karl Marx actually studies capitalism from the evolutionary perspective, that is hunter gathering, slave society, okay, primitive communism to slave society to feudal society to capitalism, and he doesn't stop here. What he says, it will further give rise to socialism and finally reaching to communism. So this is how he actually studies. But then how does Weber study? Weber studies through his ideal type. Okay, Weber studies through ideal type and compare. See, this is not technically a direct difference. See, this point is basically we are telling how Karl Marx studied and how Durkheim studied, Weber studied. Weber studied using ideal type of whom? Ideal type of capitalism and then ideal type of Protestants. Okay, after he'll try to correlate ideal type of capitalism and correlate ideal type of Protestantism, and he'll try to find certain causation. Okay, and further, in order to validate this, what he'll do, he'll further go with the comparative study. Comparative study, how will he do? He'll compare the ideal type of capitalism and then he will validate through by comparing it with ancient Hinduism, ancient Islamism, Judaism, understand, Jainism, etc., etc. Fine. So in this point, just write down how differently they are just studying this capitalism. Fine. Moving on to the next differentiation. See here in this point, what we have told that Marx stratification is only on terms of class, but here he talks about different stratification. And see, Karl Marx, when specifically we can go to the class itself. In class stratification, he says there are only two classes, that is haves and have-nots, or bourgeois or proletariats. But then Weber says no, there are actually four type of classes. Okay, within the class structure itself, there are four type of class. You can actually mention the four type of class, that is propertied upper class, propertyless white collar, petty bourgeois, and then manual working class. He gives only two class. Weber talks about four class. Then coming to this point. So Karl Marx says class is the people in similar mode of production. According to him, what is class? Class is nothing but people who are in the similar mode of production situation. See, for example, in capitalistic mode of production, so whosoever will be controlling the forces of production, okay, whosoever will be controlling the forces of production, so what they will be? They will be the capitalist. Okay, whosoever do not control forces of production, they are just working in this mode of production, they will become the working class. Understand? So what he says, how is he defining class? Class is someone who has a similar position in the mode of production. Okay, this is how he will be defining the class as. Whereas Weber, how Weber defines class? Class is a people who share similar position in the market situation. Similar position in the market situation. What does that mean? Suppose you go to market, okay, there are different items, okay, there are different items. So for example, let's say there is lunch, okay, one meal. If you can provide 50 rupees meal, okay, irrespective of whatever you are working, but you can only provide for 50 rupees meal. So let's say you'll become a middle class. Let's say you can provide 100 rupees meal, then you may become a upper class. Let's say you don't have enough money at all, you can only give 20 rupees for a meal, okay, then you will become a lower class. Did you understand? See, you might be a carpenter, you might be a real estate agent, you might be a teacher, you might be a student, you might be anything. Okay, but then how are your position in the market situation? That actually defines what? That defines your class situation, which class you belong to. Understand? So for this he actually gives one more word, that is life chances. Okay, this is basically similar life chance, that is how are you in the market area, what can you avail in the market area. So based on that your class will be defined. So and he calls this as what? Life chances. So people with the same life chance will belong to the same class. Did you understand? Moving on to the next point. Marx talks about intermediate classes. Okay, he talks about intermediate class. This is bourgeois class and proletariat class. So there will be other bourgeois and then petty proletariats, petty bourgeois, etc., etc. Okay, so what he it's not only he talks about two class, he also talks about the intermediate class. But then what he'll say, as capitalism keeps on maturing, okay, as capitalism matures, alienation also increases, eventually leading to class polarization. So all these intermediate class, they will get attached to the, they'll polarize to the other two classes. Okay, but then Weber says no, there is no evidence of class polarization. He says class polarization never happens. See, this petty bourgeois, whosoever will be there in the intermediate, they will never sink down to the proletariat level. They will always try hard to go to the above level. Understand? So this is what Weber says. Weber actually is opposing the concept of class polarization, which was given by Karl Marx. The next point is working class will never, Karl Marx says working class will actually unite for revolution. As alienation keeps on increasing, the proletariats all over the world will unite, and then they will actually go for revolution, which will eventually leading to the communist society. But then Weber says, see, that is never going to happen. Why it is never going to happen? First of all, the petty bourgeois will never sink down. This is first thing. Second thing is, see, the society is not only divided on the basis of class, there is also other factors, isn't it? There is status, there is power. See, you might be lower class, okay, you might be a lower class. So let's say that you are a Brahmin. Okay, let's assume that you are a Brahmin. You are a Brahmin lower class person. You are a Brahmin lower class person. See, in class wise, you are at the lower position, but at the status position, what is your status position? Brahmin actually occupies a top position, isn't it? So the thing is, people are placed in a different situation, in different aspect. Okay, as they are placed differently. So that is why there is there cannot be unity as such. Okay, Karl Marx only talks in one way, that is economy way, but then he says society is much broader. Okay, so because of such situation, that is because of different status, because of different of power relation, so there won't be any unity and there won't be any revolution as such. Okay, did you understand? And lastly, when Karl Marx is talking about capitalism, he to a greater extent goes for Europeanization of See, even Weber also goes to a greater extent, some extent, but Karl Marx goes to on a greater scale. That is Europeanization of capitalism, that is only studies European society, and then he'll assume that rest of the society will also be going through the same phase. But then technically it is not true, isn't it? Because there is an exception. The Asian capitalism itself is extremely different from that of whatever the Europeans have gone through. Whereas Weber, though he do study from European perspective, but then at least at the end, in order when he goes for validation, he'll do some sort of comparative study in his understanding of capitalism. Okay, so these are some of the points which you can write for comparison. Do you understand? See, both have talked about capitalism different way, but then they have substantially given a theory in order to understand capitalism. So at the end you can say that both Karl Marx capitalism as well as Weber's capitalism is equally important to understand the capitalist society at large. So something on this line you can actually write the conclusion and you can end your answer. Okay, did you understand this? It's a simple question. Only thing is you have to remember all the points of both Karl Marx as well as Weber. Fine. I hope you have understood this question. In case if you have any query, you can drop in the comment section. And tomorrow, that is next day, Monday onwards, I'm going to start with a new chapter. Okay. In case anything, please drop your queries in the comment section. Thank you all.